Well, it helps if I actually turn the mic on. Yeah, so we're just gonna pick up where things were yesterday, because why not? Got a fun little launcher window that pops up when I open up Reaper, and you can't see it, which kind of sucks, but it's pretty much just, hey, what project do you want to open? Yay! And that's what it's doing right now. Cool. So if you remember, if you were here yesterday, you know that picked up at the end of the excuse me, picked up at the end of the promos. So if I come back from that, I like to get myself into the full mindset. And I forgot that I turned off me being able to hear things. So this might work a little bit better. Those are some great things to check out. But first, let's finish up here. So, Tim, we have to jump straight into what we're really here to talk about today, and that is the. Oh, yeah, and I don't need that marker anymore. So it can just go away. What we're really here to talk about today, and that is the game Spellcaster, which came out over in North
Yes.
America at least early September 1989. Developed, published, everything by Sega of America, because I don't know, America's
hmm
the center of the world or something.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Sega of America would take a lot of the games that are.
Center of the world or something. Let's
Yeah.
clean some of
Well.
this up a little bit.
Yeah. Sega of America would take.
Something.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Sega of America would take a lot of the games that are originally put together in.
Center of the world or something.
Yeah. Well. Sega of America would take a lot of the games that originally were put together in Japan and then build it for the Western market. Okay, so yeah, and why they changed certain things, I'll never know. I.e., like the artwork and the name of the game. I think we would have been happy with Peacock King. Um, because I reckon that would have stirred a little bit of curiosity, like peacocking. What the hell is that all about? Yeah, yeah. So I think Peacock King's got a better name than Spellcaster.
I know there's been licensing issues with some of the games. I'm going to assume that's the reason
Yes.
for it here, but and it's weird. I'm going to assume that's the reason
Yes.
for it here, but I'm going to assume that's the reason for it here,
Yes.
but and it's weird.
But peacocking has been interesting.
All right, so clean some of this up, all that little audio issues.
Yes.
But and it's weird.
But peacocking has been interesting name for a business.
This one has a big advantage for me over all the Dragon Ball games that I've been doing lately, where you're playing as one
mm.
character and that's it. They changed
Yep.
his name to Kane over here.
Yes. Pretty boring name. Kane. Um,
Obscure and boring at the same
because
time, which is hard to pull off.
yeah, it's just yeah.
Obscure and boring at the same
Because
time, which is hard to pull off.
yeah, it's just yeah. Maybe it was to save characters on the screen for memory. I don't know, but yeah. Once again, we leave it to the powers that be to make these decisions. Apparently, we don't know.
And a lot like the Fist of the North Star games that we've looked at lately, this
Mm.
one got. Let's tighten this up a little bit too. looked at lately. This one got heavily localized for the North American release, but still kept the same basic idea of what was going on. Like the Buddhist robes and everything just turned into like a set of robe.
Let's make it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
To like a set of robes, and they were just different, and
Yes.
people's names were changed and stuff, but you're basically looking at the same thing as what came out in Japan graphically.
Yes, yes, yes. I think an example of that is early in the game, some random guy with a spaghetti store. I couldn't quite understand why is this guy in the he's just standing there. Oh, I just sell spaghetti, and there's a big pile of spaghetti. So I'm going to assume that is something else, probably some other Japanese cuisine, maybe ramen. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know what. I'm like, okay, of all the foods, spaghetti. I couldn't quite figure that
Spaghetti
one
is
out, so
good.
that would explain. But spaghetti, I hate
One of the fun things that I like being able to do too is make it so I'm not interrupting people.
spaghetti. I couldn't quite figure that one out, so that would explain.
Spaghetti is good.
But spaghetti, I hate. Don't get me wrong, I love me spaghetti, but in a video game which is set in ancient Japan, had me a little bit confused.
What's kind of weird with us looking at it here in 2024 is that we could have just left it as pad thai or udon noodles or like any number
Yeah.
of things, and it would have been fine. But 1989, we didn't know what a bunch of that stuff was, so it had to be
No,
spaghetti.
no.
And that way you don't have to change the graphics.
Yeah. Yes, true, true. Yes. It's amazing how much we know these days of other cultures, but also at the same time, so little too.
It's a fun little world where a lot
Yeah.
of things coming over from places that are more isolated, like Japan. I mean, even Australia and New Zealand to an extent. Like, we over here just have no idea what's going on at all.
Mm, mm. Oh, before we started this recording, I was talking about some of the workplace rules that we have over here, and you're like, my God, you get all that time off from work, and that. Yeah, no. So look, even for myself, like, because in my work, I'm dealing with lots of students that are from other countries and that, and I'm learning something new every day about their culture. So no, we can learn a lot from each other to help ourselves move forward.
And one of the ways you can do that, I think, is taking these two.
I'm thinking that I should really get something for here that will show you when I press a button. I know that they make those for, well, mostly they're making them for people doing video game stuff so you can see their inputs. It's probably where I'll start looking. And yeah.
These two things that you have that are similar in the different cultures, and just looking at them right next to each other. And on this very superficial thing, you can do it with a video game that basically will have no impact on your life at all. But then you can take those skills
yes,
onto
that's
other
right.
more important things in your life and use it there.
That's right. That's right. And it can even take you into other weirder directions, like because when I always thought that, like, because I fell in love with the company Sega, I'd always wanted to go to Japan, and I only got to do it for the first time back in 2019. It took me all this time, and it was like a big tick off in my bucket list that I ever wanted to do, and I don't regret doing it because I've been looking at them from afar, and even though they're only like a 10-hour flight,
Why not? Let's clean that one up too.
from afar, and even though they're only like a 10-hour flight from us, once I got over there, I was like a kid in a candy store because I learned all these things about it. I read so much, and then it's not till you're actually there you really feel the impact plus more on top of that. So yeah, now can't wait to get back again.
I need to get over there for the first time.
You need to. It will be the best bloody thing you've ever done. Seriously, it's such an awesome country.
Honestly, my worry with it is that I'll go over there and then just not come back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. It was a bit of a sad moment when we got back onto the Qantas flight back home. I was like, oh no, going back to reality and that. But I always say this to people that are going to Japan for the first time: just don't go to the main cities. Go out into the country to get a real idea, a better idea of what Japanese culture is like. But yeah, I could go on forever in a day talking
Tighten this up a little bit.
Japanese culture is like. But yeah, I could go on forever in a day talking about my experiences there and how we could take so much from the Japanese and apply it to our workings every day in working life and just how we do things from a day-to-day basis.
You're right. We need to rein this back into something a little bit more.
Yeah, sorry.
Realistic,
Yes,
like
went on
a wizardy guy.
I digress.
All right, really gonna clean this part up.
I digress.
You're right. We need to rein this back into something a little bit more.
Yeah, sorry.
Realistic,
Yes,
like.
went.
All right, this is gonna be the fun part. This can go here. This can go here, and let's see what happens from there. You're right. We need to rein this back into something a little bit more realistic, like a wizardy guy.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Or realistic, like a wizardy guy.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. On off. I digress. Yes. Okay.
The basic plot. I think that's pretty good, though.
I digress. Yes. Okay.
The basic plot of this game is that your main character, Kane, which I'm mostly going to keep saying his name that way because I know I'm saying it right, is summoned by the leader of one of the temples, and there's a war between a couple different groups of warlords, and you're going around the temple defeating ghosts and ninjas and beasts and monsters, and then there's villages and stuff, and you're RPGing your way through the world so that you get the ending you want to get.
That's the gist of it. Yeah. Yes. I must say that the Buddhist monk that you always report back to, he's a demanding person. You know, so you go off, you do a thing, you come back and say, all right, and you have this presumption of, all right, he doesn't need anything else from you. And then, oh, no, you now got to go off to this far away land as well and go to this temple. I felt like just saying to him, why don't you go off and do it yourself, you bloody idiots? You know, so, yes, he's very demanding. I think he's called Daikak, the Buddhist. Yes,
that's the way I would say it.
Yeah, Daikak. Daikak. I don't know. I've probably murdered that too.
This is a nice example of early RPGs too, and where they're really trying to figure out what you can do on a console, because there's parts of it where you can build up your strength or what is essentially your magic points. But there's also parts of it that are like point and click adventure, which I think are really awkward on a console, but enough have been made that
some people must really like playing them on a console and not something with a mouse.
Yeah, well, look, the demographic when I was taking the calls back in the 90s, the main demographic of people playing RPGs I found were mainly uh, mothers playing these games because they loved the storyline to it all. Um, I don't think they particularly enjoyed so much maybe this game because there is a platformer element to it, side-scrolling platformer where you got to jump and shoot at things and that. Whereas there were many other RPGs that there wasn't any of that element to it. So yeah, I think this wasn't probably one of the most popular RPGs at the time, but I think it definitely served its purpose there. Yeah, I did like the fact that there was some side-scrolling action in it, um, with a bit of storyline to it as well, and point and click. So I didn't mind that, though it was rather clunky. As you're saying, like point and click on a console is a little bit tricky. Um, but that was the technology back then. We didn't really start using mice for consoles and that. Only for a few years later, I didn't see them entering onto the market, and whether it worked on that or not is another matter altogether. Yeah, so
Yeah, because Sega didn't have a mouse until Mega Drive, right?
yeah, and even then, they were barely sold. Probably the closest thing that we had for the Master System was a sports trackball, but it was only used for the sports games, and there was another game. I think sorry, that's my dog, guys. If anyone's wondering what that sound is, yeah, for just a couple of action games. But yeah, I don't think it was ever used. I don't think it would have worked properly on a point and click. It wouldn't have worked at all.
Although, if you if you had the right people programming it, maybe you could pull off. If you if you had the right people
Yep,
where
at all.
if you had the right people programming it, maybe you could pull off something here
Yep,
where, like, that's in your second controller. If you had the right people programming it, maybe you could pull off something here where, like, that's in your second controller port and you use it when you
yeah,
need to.
yeah. There were a couple of games like that used two controllers. There was a sort of simulator, and I say that with inverted commas. F-16 Fighting Falcon, um, that required that because, as you can imagine, jet fighters got to have all these controls and that, so they adapted that over to controllers. So, um, why they didn't apply that to this game, not sure. Maybe it might have been a programming problem. They may have thought about, but yeah, unfortunately, they didn't have such a thing for this game. Maybe it wasn't worth the investment.
What I think they did invest some good things into, though, was the artwork here in the game. Like, a
Yes.
lot of people looking at this will probably think I'm crazy, but you've got to remember that the Master System is an 8-bit console that, is not exactly an NES. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you're thinking like early NES is what you need to compare this to, not like late Mario 3 stuff. We're talking like the black box games all day long.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And look, people will always debate this, which was the better console, and I think, look, if you looked at it on a graphical basis, the Master System won out in trumps because it just had the Master System won out on Trump. The Master System won out in trumps because uh,
I just feel like taking that out.
System won out because uh,
But let's drag everything with it.
the Master System won out because it just had a broader palette scheme compared to the NES. So when you look at any Master System game, the colors just jump off the page. They really do.
I've been looking at a few things comparing screenshots of some games that came out on the Famicom here that were based on Peacock King
Yep.
about the same time, and it's pretty Peacock King
Yep.
about the same time.
Thankfully, we can go like this, clean this up a little bit.
That were based on Peacock King
Yep.
about the same time, and it's pretty obvious on there which one is Mega. Which one is Master there? Which one is Mega? Which one is Master System? Obvious on there. Which one?
All right, so there's my cut point there.
Which one is Mega? Which one is Master System?
Take it to there. Cut out TM. Let's see how this rolls into each other.
It's pretty obvious on there which one is Master System and which one is NES or Famicom.
Yes, yeah, and that I mean going back to why I ended up with working with Sega, because the first time I saw a Master System, I was like, as a young kid, I was just blown away by the colors on it. I was sort of like comparing that to, because back in the colors on it. I was sort of like,
I actually like the more natural, conversationally sounding of having some of the ums and stuff in there, but that doesn't mean I'm going to leave them all in. I really should have kept those together, but that's not really a huge deal. And just visually, you can, when you've been doing this for a while, you can know that something is going to be a good cut or not.
colors on it. I was sort of like comparing that to, because back in the day, everything was comparing what you could play at home compared to what you could play in the arcades. And we'd always talked about porting all the time, you know, how close was it to the arcade original? But if you just looked on a color basis, it was almost like for like. It really was. It was just amazing.
You know, when I finally got a console, that's about the same reasoning my dad decided that we were going to get a Genesis, because he saw Super Nintendo stuff when we were over at friends' houses, and then he saw a Genesis game that had come out, and
Yep.
like instantly he said Genesis, and I mean, I would have been happy either way,
Yep.
but I'm definitely happy
Yeah.
that I was the kid who had a Genesis with a bunch of friends that had a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, right. Well, I was a bit different when I was a kid. I was the only kid with a console. Everybody else was using things like Commodore 64s or Amigas and that. But you know, I was, if you did have a console in my hometown, it was probably an Atari 2600. So I was one of those rare people that had an 8-bit console. But you know, I saw potential with this thing, and now here we are, 30 odd years later, and everyone's using consoles at home. So yeah, I chose wisely.
R.I.P. Sega home consoles. Please come back.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, R.I.P. Sega home consoles. Please come back into our life.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I was just up here wondering, honestly wondering if I had remembered to normalize these. So, jeez, that's going to be fun later, honestly. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and finish.
Chose wisely.
Oh, R.I.P. Sega home consoles.
And we don't need me reacting to him asking what I said.
Chose wisely.
R.I.P. Sega home consoles. Please come back into our lives.
Yes. Yes, yes, we do. Oh, look, I've said this many times. People just think, oh, they can just bring one back and it's easy. But to put some, give some idea how much it costs to put a console onto the market, it's at least $1 billion, 1 billion US, and that's all down to research and development, getting the people to be actually to build a unit as well. Then you got to do your marketing. There's so much money that goes into it, and I don't think Sega's got $1 billion just to throw into a console that could compete against what's already established there. People are already pretty much stuck either onto the Wii. Oh, sorry, is it Wii? Sorry, is it a Wii? I forgot the name of it.
Switch now.
Switch. Yeah, Switch. See, there you go. That's how far back away. How far back away.
One thing I really like about Reaper 2 is that I can take this hit point and or the split point, I don't know why I said hit point like that, and just move it. So I only really have to drag things in one direction.
See, there you go. That's how far back away. So Switch, Xbox, or PlayStation, and even the Xbox is slowly dying on the market too. So, yeah, Sega can't afford to just throw away $1 billion and let it go become a flop.
Well, it's not like they made a console that flopped.
Oh, what did he say?
As much as a lot of people.
Well, it's not like they
become a flop. As much as.
I hate having to take out what the guest said like this, but we also need it to make sense.
Let it go become a flop.
Well, it's not like they made a console that flopped, which before it was a console that flopped, which before it was an add-on that flopped that didn't even really need to exist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the Saturn didn't really work. The architecture behind behind putting that thing together in such haste was ridiculous, and then they brought out a console after that, which was the Dreamcast, but it was too far ahead of its time, which was the.
I think he was about here. He said Dreamcast.
Dreamcast, but it was too far ahead of its time, which was Dreamcast, but it was too far ahead of its time. So, yeah, but it is what it is, as I say. There's not much you can do about it.
Yep.
So
Sega makes the good console.
Not much you can do about it.
Yep. So Sega makes the good console,
so,
and Nintendo makes the good timing.
That's right. That's right.
Boom, 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 boom.
Can do about it. So
Sega makes the good console, and Nintendo makes the good timing.
That's right. That's right.
Bringing this back to Peacock King somehow. Pretend there was a good segue there, because there's not going to be at all. This game, I think, does a really good job of showing off a bunch of different monsters that you either did or could have seen in the manga, showing off really at least what an 8-bit console could handle doing, what it could be like having to be somebody who goes around, gets these demons out of people, gets these ghosts out of the place, doing all that stuff, and also having a boss that can't tell you a whole list of things to get done so you can find an efficient way to do it. Instead, they want to micromanage how you get your job done.
Pretty much. That's pretty much the gist of it all. And there's a lot of problem solving, which is normal of an RPG, because you come across certain bosses and that. So the first level of problem solving is trying to understand the firing sequence or attack sequence from those bosses. And then when you start finding out that you can't really read it, then you figure out, okay, which one of these spells would best be used in this situation. Now, I don't know what the manual would. Used in this situation. Now, I don't know what the manual would have looked like for this game, if it gave any clue or not. But because I didn't have access to the manual, this is what took extra time in trying to advance against the bosses. Every time I saw them, I didn't know which one to use, when to use it. Yeah, so it took a lot of sleuthing to get to as far as where I got to.
I found the manual.
Oh, did you?
I just found the manual online.
Okay, so we don't need to hear me singing my little I Found the Manual song, but that happens a lot. Like, I'm not thinking we have a reason for you to find the manual, and then I find the manual online. Just, oh, excuse me, just magically.
To get to as far as where I got to.
I just found the manual online a couple different places.
Okay, of course you did.
I mean, I know, right? It's the power of the internet. I'm looking at one where they took all the text and put it somewhere, so I don't have to try to read a scan. But
right,
I mean, even with your spells, like there's lets you get a destructive beam of light or lightning or a big old ball of fire and send all your
Oh, let's tighten this up a lot.
Walking Dead people back. Lets you get a destructive beam of light or lightning or a lightning or a big old ball of fire and send all your Walking Dead people back. Lets you get a
All right. So this one actually might not get cut that much, but we're going to see.
Get a destructive beam of light or lightning.
Oh, that goes better than I thought it would, actually.
Or lightning or a big old ball of fire and
so boom, 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 boom there, and boom, 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 boom there, and boom, 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 boom there. I can actually probably bring this one back over here too. All right, see how this goes.
there's lets you get a destructive beam of light or lightning or a big old ball of fire and send all your Walking Dead people back to the underworld. Get your strength back.
of course. Yeah,
It's a bunch of stuff like that, which back to the underworld. Get your strength back.
of course.
Like it's a bunch of stuff like that, which D&D terms would basically just be like which element is going to work against the monster that you've got, but all essentially the same thing. Mostly, I mean, there is also one that lets you fly, which is different and really really cool.
Right, yeah. And flying, look, if the flying aspect can be used in your platform stages, that would make the game a lot easier. Because another thing to this game is that the mechanic thing to this game is that the mechanics of when you jump and when you move are very sluggish when you want to get from one platform to another and that. And there'd be like some enemies there that just hover around the top. I would have loved to have just, being able to go up there and shoot it from their height and trying to time my jump while avoiding their attacking lasers or beams or fire, whatever it is. Avoiding their attacking lasers or beams or fire, whatever. Avoiding their attacking lasers or beams or fire, whatever it is. So something like that would have been handy. But yeah. It's definitely got its challenges, and it's not a game you're going to be able to finish in a day. If you had a day to play video games. I did a lot of saving along the way. So, and I don't think I got far in it.
Well, from what you can tell as we start to wrap things up, what do you see as this game? And from what you've been able to see as we wrap things up, what does this game... And that is the sign of me not liking how I said that. From what you've been able to see as we wrap things up,
I got far in it.
From what you've been able to see as we wrap things up, what does this game really get right, looking at what you've learned pretty recently about Peacock King?
I think what it gets right is I think the sleuthing that's gets right is I think the sleuthing that's required. Okay, so when you're using spells, you really have to be patient and take lots of notes on how to get through each of the bosses.
Did I even make a noise there?
Notes on how to get through each of the bosses.
I think that just picked up a weird, stupid click.
The other thing is trying to be patient and take lots of notes on how to get through each of the bosses. So there's that. The other thing is trying to work out, and unlike other RPGs where you've got these side-scrolling side-scroll. Where you've got these side-scrolling elements of that. It's also working out your jumping patterns and knowing where to stand.
Also, double click and play like that so I can get it to auto scroll.
So I think that's the thing I like about it, is that you need to be patient and you need to take notes and you need to really be a sleuth and figure out, okay, so I can't do that, and I can't use that spell, I can't do this. All right. That I think that's the one thing that really stands out with this game.
And comparing this one to the Peacock King manga too, I think that also fits in well, because if you just have a manga where somebody goes in and blasts the same spell the entire time to get rid of the monsters, kind of, if you have somebody who just goes in and blasts the same spell every time to get rid of the monsters, that's called how my group plays D&D. Goes in and blasts the same spell the entire time to get rid of the monsters, then that's going to be a really boring manga, or at least a really short manga.
Yep.
And you can't make a really short RPG. That would just be weird and dumb.
No, yeah. And
okay, let's hold up right here for a second. You can make a really short RPG, and you can make it good. But the thing about making a short RPG is that you have to have still the same number of good things in it. And as you're making all of these good things, you don't have time to sit there and like have new good things showing up with it. you have to just have it packed full of the good things the entire time because your RPG is only like 2 or 3 hours long. And I don't know why I'm yawning at all. And I hope it's not because I'm getting sick or something. Actually, I think I know what it is. I have an idea of what it could be. And I'm going to need to test some things out in here. But yeah. I don't know. We're going to get back to editing here. Because I'm honestly kind of wondering if I need to check the CO2 levels in this room. Because it's closed door, closed window, just me. And no other living thing. That would just be weird and dumb.
No, yeah. And I've look, putting on to the benefits of the game. I think you get a lot of shelf life out of this game because I like. I would get a game back in the day, and I could finish it. This is when I was young and had eye hand coordination. That was a lot better. I could finish off an action game in probably 8 hours straight. No problems about it. This one I reckon would take me months to get through. And now, as a kid, would I have the patience? I don't know. But if I wanted to get my money's worth, this would be one of those games. Yeah, definitely.
What do you think this one really gets wrong?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think the mechanics of when you're in the platform stages, it's very sluggish. I think that's an issue. I also think it's an issue. I also think that there's a lot of going back and forth. Like you always, it's very sluggish. I think that's an issue. I also think that there's a lot of going back and forth. Like you're always going back to this Buddhist monk, Daikak, just to tell him something. And then he'll say, "Oh no, right. Well, then you go." What I've seen is that in Daikak, just to tell him something, and then he'll say, "Oh no, right. Well, then you go." What I would have liked to have seen is that in the storyline, he went less back to this Buddhist monk and probably got more information from after beating each of the bosses that leads you off onto another path. I got to a stage where that happened for the first time, and that was after I had beaten, what was it, about 4 different bosses. Before I was, well, you now go on to here. Oh my god, that's a nice change. I don't have to go to that annoying Buddhist monk anymore. Okay. So I think the storyline could have flowed on a little bit better there, where I wasn't always returning back. It just didn't make any sense in going through that process. Now, the conversations that you have with people, I have to say that Kane is not the sharpest tool in the shed. Right? So he gets he kills a person, right? So he kills a person, and then the enemy just disappears, and before he disappears, he or she disappears, says this one word, and then he goes, "What would that mean?" The script is, the script is very, it's not, the script is very, it's not, the script is very, it's not very, the script is very, it's not talking that mean, the script is very, it's not very deep when he's doing a monologue, or if he's talking with himself. What could that mean? So I think they could have put a little bit more depth in that. But I don't know if that's because of it being translated from Japanese. That could have been a reason why they couldn't put in so much depth. That's my only guess. But yeah, I think they're my main depth. That's my only guess. But yeah, I think they're my main annoying things about this game is that you're always going back to the Buddhist monk. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, and the depth of the story from where I got wasn't really too deep. I couldn't find that. I guess that might open up in later stages. That would all make sense. I often think that if you're going to put together a game, you have to grab your audience early to want them to play more. And I think that if you're going to put together a game, I often think that if you're going to put together a game in later stages, that would all make sense. I often think that if you're going to put together a game in later stages, that would all make sense. I often think that if you're going to put together a game, you have to would all make sense. I often think that if you're going to put together
Oh, this is going to be a fun one. I think I can do it like this.
I often think if you're going to put together a game, you have to grab your audience early to play more, and that makes sense. I often think if you're going to put together a game, you have to grab your audience early to want them to play more. Found myself it all makes sense. I often think if you're going to put together a game, you have to grab your audience early to want them to play more. And I found myself that I was just going, oh, why am I having to put up with this rubbish? And I almost felt like quitting a lot of the time. But I got to a point where it actually went on a slightly different turn. I'm like, okay, now I'm getting. I think they need to do something. If they were going to change the story, I would have some major things happen earlier on than waiting so far to get into it. Because, like a kid, the kid's just not going to be engrossed in it early. Not unless they are a big Peacock King fan and they want to see more. Maybe that will grab their audience, but you're talking about a very niche audience there, I would be saying.
Yeah, my one defense that I can have of the script here is that Master System games, you had 512 kilobytes of data to play with.
That's right, yeah.
Unless you had one of the cards, and then it was 32 kilobytes of data, so there is not a lot of room to work with.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room. I get that. Yeah, so, and that's why I'm thinking if it was in Japanese, what's it, kanji? Is it kanji? I can't think of the calligraphy. Yeah, kanji. If it was in that, maybe that would, because there'd be less characters there to describe something, that could provide more depth to it, as opposed to the English language, which is rather inefficient.
I think that's the nicest thing we can say about the English language today.
Yes. There, or there.
For a little bit of context here, I will often tell Kaylee that things in French are stupid, mostly around silent letters. And then she starts to get mad at me until I remind her that I also say the same things are stupid in English and Spanish and every other language that I know any piece of, especially when it comes to silent letters. And English being the giant conglomerate language that it is, has a lot of very stupid things about it, mostly revolving around things such as the rule. Well, I guess things pretty well exemplified by the rule I before E except when it isn't. And other things like that where it's that way unless it's not. And I think that's stupid. Also, just for the heck of it, I'm going to tighten me up here, which won't really change anything because that's really quiet.
Nicest thing we can say about the English language today.
Yes. There, or there. Which one am I talking about? So the English language obviously has its limitations, and yeah, I think that's probably why it's lacking in depth for the storyline.
And seeing as how you didn't have too much experience,
It's lacking in depth for the storyline.
and seeing as how you didn't have too much experience with Peacock King before this, do you think that looking at this game was a good, at least piece of a primer course and maybe getting you ready to check out the manga or the anime?
I think it would have been if I had have known back in the day that it's actually a part of manga. I think I would have investigated a part of manga. I think I would have investigated it. It's actually a part of manga. I think I would have investigated it more, and then would have tried to do as much searching around as to which of the other Sega games were related to that, to manga series, i.e., Fist of the North Star and that. I probably would have gone down that path, but trying to get information back in the 80s is not just like a simple search on the computer. You really have to do some sleuthing. You really do. And as I mentioned earlier before, like the only way I found out about manga was when I was going out with a Japanese girl years ago. So I didn't know there was such a thing. Yeah. So such a thing. Yeah. So
Of all the ums to take out, it's that really loud one that's going to be the easiest
I
decision.
didn't know there was such a thing.
And a breath.
So I think I would have said more. I didn't know there was such a thing. Yeah. So I think I would have investigated it. I didn't know there was such a thing. Yeah. So I think I would have investigated it more. But it wouldn't have been easy to do. It wouldn't have been easy to do.
This one, I think, and also this one and the sequel. This one, I think, and also this one and the sequel to this one, Mystic Defender, I think are the closest I'm going to be able to get to
Easy to do.
this one and the sequel to this one, Mystic Defender, I think are the closest I'm going to be able to get to having one of these be a primer course for me, at least for a good while. I know there's some games coming up later where I'll be able to use them the same way. And I feel like these were enough to get me into the world to know that I'm interested in what's going on, or at least could be interested in what's going on. But like, I'm not going to be able to explain really what's going on to anybody just because of this game. So it definitely
that's
can't be
true.
the whole primer course in itself, but it could
Yeah.
definitely be part of it.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah. And once again, like there's only so much you can really put to your audience through a video game back in the 80s. So you're limited with how much you can present to everyone. And if you don't do it right, then people, us Westerners, could really relate to. And if you don't do it right, then people, us Westerners,
The
could
joys
really
of
relate
Australian
to.
internet.
And if you don't do it right, then people, us Westerners, could really relate to. And if you don't do it right,
I think I'm just going
then
to take
people-
that whole thing out, which sucks.
us Westerners could really relate to. And if you don't do it right, could really relate to. Us Westerners could really relate to video games, comics, convert. Us Westerners could really relate to it with how much you can present to everyone. Us Westerners could really relate to video games, how much you can present to everyone. Us Westerners could really relate to video games, comics converted. Everyone, us Westerners could really relate to video games.
Oh, this is going to work out pretty well, I think.
Comics converted. Everyone, us Westerners could really relate to comics converted to video games, like from the Disney.
I think the kangaroos might have eaten the internet. I cannot hear you at all anymore. Crap, now I can't. All right, another marker time. I don't know why I'm naming it Kangaroos Ate the Internet, because that is kind of funny, but also I'm going to take it out. And nobody will ever see it. I think the kangaroos might have eaten the internet. I cannot hear you at all anymore. Crap, now I can't see you.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I could hear you and see you.
Well, that's fun.
so, wasn't my kangaroos? Might have been your kangaroos.
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you sit with them and feed them?
I don't think the ones that are easiest for me to get to, I don't think they would let us feed them, but they're in just like a super giant cage, and
right.
I got within a meter. They didn't seem to care.
Okay. Yeah. Now we've got a place out east that's out in the bush, and you can actually sit down with them and feed them right next to them. And it's just all they do is just lie in the sun, get a few rays. They're not really. They're rather docile, to be honest. It's not unless you get the ones out in the bush, and especially if it's bloody mating season, they're a bit how would I say, frisky.
Yeah.
Bit doughy.
What's fun is this thing broke on us almost right at the very end, so we're not coming back for much.
Okay, cool.
Most importantly, Tim, though.
Cool.
Most important. All right, I think I don't know why I even messed with that, because I'm gonna figure out. Naming this the kangaroos threw up, just because it's a kangaroo thing, and I will then remember that it goes with the other one. So markers, because I can just go like that. And we're going to cut all of that so I can drag this into here. Just get rid of that marker. Something just moved. Shit, something just moved up. I just want to get rid of the marker. All right. Way over here. And then we can figure out what to do with that for outtake purposes.
Converted to video games, like from the Disney.
Most importantly, Tim, though,
comics converted to video games, like from the Disney.
Most importantly, Tim, though, I have to.
Listeners could really relate to comics converted to video games.
Most importantly, Tim, though, I have to know if you could
really relate to comic.
Though I have to know if you could make a live action Peacock King, except main wizardy character got to be a Muppet. Which Muppet would it be?
Okay.
This is the part where I once again forget that England or the UK, I don't know, they use Muppet as an insult, and Australia, being a former British prison colony, may or may not have picked up on that. So I have no idea what he thought I was talking about.
Okay. Most random question. Who would it be? What? Muppet character. Who would be? Who's the most? I'd say Animal. I think he'd be all right. Animal the drummer.
Oh
I think
gosh,
he'd be all
Animal
right
as
for
a
that.
wizard would be... Oh, I think if we cut me out of that part...
Right? Animal the drummer. I think he'd be all right for that.
Oh,
Crazy.
so cool.
The drummer. I think he'd be all right for that.
Oh,
Crazy.
so cool.
Yes. So have him doing that. I think that would be a good. Having doing that, Rob, would be pretty cool.
Well, Tim, it has been...
So I was also thinking. That Rob would be pretty cool. So I was also thinking Beaker.
Okay, so we'll just take that one out, but then we'll leave that and go like
Be
this.
pretty cool. I was also thinking Beaker. And all his noises are Mimi. And I was also thinking Beaker. And all his noises are Mimi. And I was also thinking Beaker. And all his noises are Mimi. And to cast his spell. And then the dialogue between, is a Mimi. And voices of Mimi, 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 Mimi.
So, we're gonna hold on to that for later.
Mimi, 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 Mimi. to cast his spell. And then the dialogue between, all the different characters and that. But Kane, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Me, 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 me.
Two.
Me.
Two.
So, save a lot of memory on the on.
All right, let's get rid of me. I'm gonna shift this over anyway, so that doesn't really matter.
Save a lot of memory on the on the video game, wouldn't it? It'd just be
yeah.
me.
Well, Tim, it has been great talking to you about all of this. If people want to hear more from you, where else can they find you around the internet?
All right. Well,
okay, this is the fun part because of the fact that I have decided that Twitter does not exist except for these few little times here where I'm going to explain that I think that Twitter does not exist. So I can take it out cleanly if he mentions Twitter, and I can take it out cleanly.
all right. Well, as least likely as I'm doing posts these days, I'm mainly on Twitter. As least likely as I'm doing posts these days, I'm mainly on Twitter, or X now, even though the domain's still called Twitter. So you'll find me there. You can either search for me as Sega Master Tim Redo, or REDUX, or just at Sega MSTIM. You'll find me that way. I'm not as active these days as aforementioned. I'm very busy with work and life at the moment, and I've been hoping to get a little bit more time, but that hasn't come to fruition. So I've just got to see what happens in this next month, see how we go from there.
And it looks like I'm going to have to remember that Twitter exists because he is not anywhere else right now that I know of. Like, I'm literally looking at Tim's Blue Sky right now, and it is one post saying that he's here and one post with a movie receipt ticket from about a month ago, and that's it. So and for some reason Twitter will not load on my Firefox. So I can't even look to see if there's anything there because I refuse to open up it. Excuse me. I refuse to open up anything to even check. So we're just gonna pray.
Or more from you, where else can they find you around the internet?
As what happens in this next month, see how we go from there.
Well, hopefully that goes well for you. But at least as far as people
I
finding
hope
you,
so
we'll have
too.
links down in the show notes because that's easier than trying to remember how to spell things.
Pretty much.
Actually, we're not gonna do it like that. We're gonna do it.
Hopefully that goes well for you. But at least as far as people.
So we're gonna go like this, and then we're gonna shift everything, but then we're gonna turn that off because I want to keep this here. Then putting these in the same track so that I can really super line them up well, and then I can just drop this one down.
Hopefully that goes well for you.
I hope so too.
But at least as far as people finding you, we'll have links down in the show notes because that's easier than trying to remember how to spell things.
Pretty much. Sorry, I just thought I'd mention that just in case. Yes, but no, it's been a pleasure to be on here. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's been great having you here too, and I get to continue the Australian accent because we're gonna go straight into watching some Taskmaster after I close this out.
Oh, very good. Very nice.
Got to keep it classy over here, as much as Tom can be classy.
Yeah, Tom's a ledge. Yes. All right, mate. Thank you very much for your time. Tom's a ledge. Yes. All right, mate.
Okay, I think that is our cut point there. And yeah, that's our cut point there. So boom, those all get erased. Okay, so yeah, you can't see my mouse. All this empty space up here, this is why I drag my outtakes so far over, because I can go and now I have all this room to record. And I can record my outro. So let me turn my fan off because I've had that on the whole time. Just in case. And let's go ahead and, let's just go ahead and finish this thing off. Before I do that, see, I have this coaster that I can't really show you. I can kind of show it to you because my wife made it, but it's Hulk, so it's green, and it kind of green screens out. So it's kind of hard to show you, but it's green, yay! But it's pretty cool, and I like it. All right. So let me open up my notes thing so that I can say all the right things. Because no matter how hard I try, I always like having no matter how hard I try, I really like having the notes open for recording stuff because I will mess it up somehow. Oh, look. Obsidian had an update. I still need to make a video about how I did that and how I use Obsidian. Here, let me pull it over here so I'm not like staring completely away from everybody. Oh, this is gonna look really weird because I can't see half of my screen, but it's camera. Can you do it? All right. My track is the only one that's active. All right. As always, the best place to find me is going to be over at playcomics.com, where there's links to all the social media things. I'm pretty sure I'm going to settle on Blue Sky, but we'll see. And if nothing else, there's links to everything over there, so you can find me with stuff, and we can make it easy. If you want to be on the show yourself, or if you know some people who should be on the show, friends or enemies, or maybe not enemies, because I don't want you to send me giant assholes or anything. But there is a link down in the show notes here to the list of games that I'm looking to get booked the soonest. It's a lot more obscure things right now. So one way or another, like if you want to be on the show and talk about something cool that I don't have a ton of other episodes on and probably won't have a ton of other episodes on, now is a good time to jump on that. If you want to help support the show, then you can be like Dan McMahon and Ono Lit Class and give the show money, because it does cost money to make a podcast. Unfortunately, yay, capitalist society and everything. But also just share the show with friends, share the link around, tell everybody how great it is, and maybe they'll believe you. I hope they believe you, because that's true, even though I'm a little bit biased. Don't forget that Play Comics is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, home to such wonderful shows as Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we find out, what if Marvel was making a third season of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Where we find out, what if Marvel was making a third season of What If? Would we be covering that? That's not even a real question, because the answer is yes, we would, because we are. If you like the music that I'm really talking on top of right now, head on over to backingtrack.gg to check out their music and maybe grab something to use in one of your own projects. But most of all, just grab a game, grab a stack of comics, and go find yourself a new favorite character. Alright, so I gotta edit at least part of that. Let me turn my fan back on. It is hot in here. I really need to get an overhead fan. Doop, 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 doop. It's me, and I know it's me. I don't need to be that far zoomed out. That's more than I usually do on the outro. Yeah, that'll work. All right. I have magical stream deck buttons. I have one to normalize. So, hey, I just normalized. I have one to do the auto trim of taking out all the silences and stuff. I love it. And it's not going to take that long on this. That's what I've been leading up for every time I've gone up in here, is checking out of those. So like all those little cuts and breaks and stuff in there. Yeah. So I'm gonna keep 5% by default. 150 to 300 milliseconds, which gets me to like way under a quarter of a second to just under over a quarter of a second. Let's see what we got here. As always, the best place to boop, 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 boop. All right.
Yes.
As always, the best place to find me is going to be over at playcomics.com, where there's links to all the social media things. I'm pretty sure I'm going to settle on Blue Sky, but we'll see. And if nothing else, there's links to everything over there, so you can find me with stuff, and we can make it easy. If you want to be on the show yourself, or if you know some people who should be on the show, friends or enemies, or maybe not enemies, because I don't want you to send me giant assholes or anything. But there is a link down in the show notes here to the list of games that I'm looking to get booked the soonest. It's a lot more obscure things right now. So, one way or another, like, if you want to be on the show and talk about something cool that I don't have a ton of other episodes on, and probably won't have a ton of other episodes on, now is a good time to jump on that. If you want to help support the show, then you can be like Dan McMahon and own a lit class and give the show money, because it does cost money to make a podcast. Unfortunately, yay, capitalist society and everything. But also just share the show with friends, share the link around, tell everybody how great it is, and maybe they'll believe you. I hope they believe you, because that's true, even though I'm a little bit biased. Don't forget that Play Comics is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, home to such wonderful shows as Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we find out, what if Marvel was making a third season of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Where we find out, what if Marvel was making a third season of wonderful shows as Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Where we find out, what if Marvel was making a third season of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.? What if Marvel was making a third season? Marvel was making a third season of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we find out, what if Marvel was making a third season of What If? The answer is yes. We are. If you like the music right now, head over to Backtrack. Comics is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, home to such wonderful shows as Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. What if Marvel was making a third season of What If? Would we be covering that? That's not even a real question, because the answer is yes, we would. Because we are. If you like the music that I'm really talking on top of right now, head on over to backingtrack.gg to check out their music and maybe grab something to use in one of your own projects. But most of all, just grab a game, grab a stack of comics, and go find yourself a new favorite character. Boom. All right, so throw this in here again. Throwing it way over here because I don't have, or I've still got this on, which will shove it around and stuff. But I can slide it around over here, and I think about here looks right. But also just share the show with friends, share the link around, tell everybody how great it is, and maybe they'll believe you. I hope they believe you, because that's true, even though I'm a little bit biased. Don't forget that Play Comics is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, home to such wonderful shows as Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. What if Marvel was making a third season of What If? Would we be covering that? That's not even a real question, because the answer is yes, we would. Because we are. If you like the music that I'm really talking on top of right now, head on over to backingtrack.gg to check out their music and maybe grab something to use in one of your own projects. But most of all, just grab a game, grab a stack of comics, and go find yourself a new favorite character. No, I want it to be a little bit more. And go find yourself a new favorite character. All right, so before I forget, we gotta paste in that meep. Because we're using that on cut that back out. Reason that instead of the normal coin noise that I use between things. Oh no, I gotta crack everything. Watch my timeline shrink. All right.
Okay.
Those are some great things
Blah,
to
blah,
check
blah.
out. First, let's finish up
Ugh, I can't talk today. I think the kangaroos.
Okay.
Those are some great things
Blah,
to
blah,
check
blah.
out. But first, let's finish up with, ugh, I can't talk today.
Mimi.
I think the kangaroos might have eaten the internet. I cannot hear you at all anymore. I think the kangaroos might have eaten the internet. I cannot hear you at all anymore. Crap, now I can't. Kangaroos might have eaten the internet. Crap, now I can't see you.
How's that?
Hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I could hear you and
Might have eaten the internet.
how's that? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I could hear you and see you.
Well, that's
Um,
fun.
so wasn't my kangaroos, might have been your kangaroos.
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you sit with them and feed them?
I don't think the ones that are easiest for me.
I wonder actually. First off, what just jumped up? That was crazy. I wish you could see the plugin windows that come up in here.
That are easiest for me to get to. We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have
Yeah.
some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Oh, can you?
We actually have some, not too
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to fix that. It's
but they're in
whatever.
the zoo or something like that, not just out in the wild.
Let's just get rid of.
Can you?
We actually have some, not too far, but they're in
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not going to mess with that anymore. And then my outro stinger, which you won't be able to hear.
much.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So let's get this thing exported. And for some reason, I keep forgetting that I need to fix my button over there for rendering. I wonder how much of this you're going to be able to see. Because I honestly have no idea. And of course, I Gosh, I need to switch this to a just a screen capture. Caster, everything else keeps up the same. Yay. Actually, let's. Oh, heck. Let's. Which one is it? Um. Boop, get me back in here. All right. So. And nothing in my taskbar is interesting, so I'm going to cut that off because I just don't care. I'm not sharing that with you. All right. So yay, as this is going, why not? Let's go ahead and get the art part figured out. Which is why I was switching this to the display capture. I have a button on the Stream Deck that just straight opens the file for the episode art. Oh, look, that fits. And this is episode 181, so that's nice and easy. Get rid of you and get rid of you. I don't know what NVIDIA is trying to use here, but we are going to just ignore that. And let's knock this over. Take this smaller so we can see it. We will call 50% close enough. Close enough for what I need to see. I normally wouldn't do this on this small. I don't need that much of a web browser space, so we can just drag that over there. Doop 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 doop. Got to grab it big. Got to grab it big. That is a good one. Not too many good ones, actually. So that might... This might be a better one right here. Yeah, let's go with this one. So I want it probably about there. But definitely underneath this versus layer. Give it its background, give it its shadow, 75% opacity, and 35 pixel offset. That's just my standard thing. Now the fun part. Of why did I do it like that? I need to... No, crap, I need to be able to spell is the problem. Oh, really? I could have just looked at the freaking Peacock King. To be perfectly honest with you, what did I use on the last one? And why did I go to YouTube? See, this is why I have the website set up the way that I do. It's entirely so that I can come in here and find things. Like, some people thought I was crazy that I wanted to have this cover art gallery that you're about to see. Because why would... I mean, I don't know. It's a nice, fun, easy place to send people to see like what was done already. But for me, it is a real quick thing that I can come in here and look for and see. Why did I do that Superman one backwards? That was stupid. And see, like, what did I use before? All right, so Mystic Defender, I used that main one. right there. So I want to find something different, which means none of that one. Goodness. So see what we got here. See what we got here. This one maybe. Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at stuff. That's all right. Yeah, I like that one. Oh, that's gonna be too little. No, that looks too little just from that. Oh, 580 by 3 some. Gosh, I need it bigger. Well, that's why I forgot to say make it only show me the big ones. All right, so start this all over. Boom, boom, and I don't need to see my own website anymore. That's what I used. Gosh. The fun part with looking at these manga covers for me is I am just kind of sitting here praying that it's not like somebody's fan art. Gosh. See, that's all right. No. No. That's about the same size. Yeah, we're gonna roll with this one. Doop 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 doop. But this is done with Thin Reaper. So that's done. Save the project, yay. But yay, that's what it is. Alright, so back to this guy. That's done. Red lines are just because it doesn't like how I spelled things, but gets rid of them there. Oh no, you see some top secret things that I don't really care if you see. All right, so the next thing that needs to happen is that need to get the file tags and everything. So doop 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 doop. Actually, I'm probably going to cut things here after I do this part, because I'm not even going to be able to finish this part. I still got to go, like, write the blog post to go with it in the show notes and everything. But I will get through this part. So over here is everything that I loaded up into this folder, into the project. Because that's just the way the Reaper works. But this is... Tim, not time. $2025, it's 181, and this is a podcast. I have like one person who said that they listen to things on an old school iPod with no internet connection, so having the genre as podcast helped them. The comments is where I will end up putting the link to the episode post, which I haven't made yet, and I want to copy and paste that just in case anything weird happens there. So I'll worry about that in a bit. Doop 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 doo. The album artist is me. The composer is me. I need to spell my own name right. And it's this number 1 because it's a regular episode, and we're going to save it there so I don't have to do all that again. All right, so I'm going to cut things off here because that other stuff takes time and don't want to sit here and write it with y'all watching over my shoulder. But if this is something that we should do more often, excuse me, this is something we should do more often stuff, let me know, and we can do that.